Mr. Stover, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, President McGuire. Members of the board, it's a pleasure being here before you today. What I have to bring for you is something that I don't relish in coming before this board, but I think it's necessary. My name is John Stover. I reside at 13085 Eagles Landing, North Royalton, Ohio, 44133. And I'm president of Ohio Value Voters, also a board member of Protect Ohio Children Coalition. You're going to review our websites at ohiovaluevoters.org and protectohiochildren.net. I'm here today to present a disturbing issue relating to a state tax-funded organization called Info Ohio. What is Info Ohio? It's a joint effort between Ohio schools and Ohio library system to provide online resources for learning. Info Ohio is exposing the children in our state to hardcore pornography. This material is appalling. Grade school children have access to this pornography. What I have for you today, and before I do pass this out, in the envelopes, I've sealed it. I'll apologize first to the entire board, especially to the women that are in attendance. It's not something that I relish in providing you, but you need to know what is being provided to the children in the state of Ohio.
Well, I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There is a President McGuire, there is also a couple additional copies, one for the superintendent as well, and all of our board members here. This issue is not about politics, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, etc. This is about harmful material that the Ohio Revised Code defines in section 2907.31, disseminating matters harmful to juveniles, which I've also provided you a copy of the code with the envelope. It was reported last year that the website Pornhub faced lawsuits alleging it knowingly participated in trafficking in child pornography. Pornhub permitted children under the age of 18 to engage in sex and the making and filming of material for their website. One cannot be held accountable to take action against this indoctrination and exploitation of children if they are ignorant of the facts. However, today you now are aware of Info Ohio's involvement of exposing children to hardcore pornography, including Pornhub. What action will this board take regarding this corruption and sexualization of the minds of Ohio's children? My recommendation to the State Board of Education: require the head of Info Ohio to appear before this board to explain why this material is on their website. Draft a resolution in opposition to this pornography material and exposure of children to the same. Contact Attorney General Dave Yost and require that his office pursue criminal action against Info Ohio under Ohio Revised Code 2907.31. Send a letter to all Ohio school districts urging them to sever ties with Info Ohio and warning parents of this harm of hardcore pornography to their children. In concluding, permit me to share the words of Jesus regarding the harming of children. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 1 through 6, at the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, this same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. But whosoever, this is an important verse, but whosoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Info Ohio is providing offensive material to minors, which is not only inappropriate, but also criminal. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I would be pleased to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Mr. Stover. First question from Mr. Shea.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you very much, Mr. Stover, for being here and for your testimony. Two questions, but I need to preface it with a little background information for your benefit and for the benefit of the board. I can recall, I think it was probably about a year ago, because it was one of my first meetings on the board, we had a presentation in one of our committee meetings from the head of Info Ohio. And in the Q&A, I had asked a question about this very subject matter, things that I had heard being accessible to students on the platform. And I think some other board members had followed up with similar questions, including, I believe, Senator Brenner had corroborated things that he had heard of the same nature. And we were assured, that the woman reacted with absolute shock, and we were assured that nothing like that is available and that we would receive follow-up. And the only thing I can recall having received was, I think, some information on the statute pertaining to venereal education from our superintendent, which of course was not the heart of the matter. That was not the question. So I took that as essentially a dodge, but here you are today with this content. But my question to you, have you gone to the local level, your local board, and presented this? What feedback, what have they told you about this, about what they can do or cannot do? And then the second question is, how would a parent or a concerned citizen, taxpayer, come across this information? How would they find it if they were perusing the platform themselves?
President McGuire, two very good questions. This was roughly 3.5, 4 months ago. I did attend a school board meeting in Hudson, Ohio. At that time, President McGuire, I did in fact bring the material that I'm providing to you today. And I urged the board to sever the ties that they had with the Hudson school districts. Many school districts of the 600 plus in the state, they in fact have portals right from their website that allow students to get right into Info Ohio. And I urged them to sever that tie, first of all. Number two, I asked the superintendent to contact me so that we could discuss it further. I never received a call from the superintendent the following day. I'm sorry, your final question?
The second question was about how would someone access this information for themselves?
This is the thing that is very, very troubling as far as accessing the information. Someone would ask the question, well, what grade level would have access to this? Once again, this is supposed to be a database for learning, not a pornographic website that children are being exposed to. So it would depend upon, number one, as far as children are concerned, as to the expertise that they would have with the computer, logging in, looking at this Info Ohio website. And then as far as parents knowing, if someone might think, well, how do parents go about finding out? A lot of times, and I understand this has happened to parents, where they have to explain now to their child what they've come across while they've been on Info Ohio, and parents learn about it after the fact. But anyone that would have a PC that would log into Info Ohio, and I should mention, this is only the tip of the iceberg that I'm providing you. Only the tip of the iceberg. Please go out yourself. You can use certain words such as toys, T-O-Y-S, and some of the things that will come up it's not material that you would want that any child in the state of Ohio should be exposed to.
Well, I would just say thank you again, and it's my hope, as sometimes when we have impactful testimony, that it gets assigned to a committee and becomes a prioritized agenda item. But whether or not that's the case in some way, shape, or form, I do plan to pursue it. So thank you very much for coming today.
Mr. Hagan.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. I certainly appreciate what your organizations do to help children and families in Ohio. In your opinion, is there anything within Ohio Revised Code 290731 which would exclude or prevent schools and libraries from being prosecuted on these type of issues?
You know, one of the things that, President McGuire and Board Member Hagan, you know, one of the things that should be stated is that the American Library Association, the ALA, they basically have a no restriction on any and all information. Anything should be made available, and it should not be age discriminate. In other words, we're going to put it out there. And in this case, what you find is that not only in the state of Ohio, Board Member Hagan, but also in other states throughout the entire country, we're finding the same issues with these other states. You have federal and state law that are in place regarding these type of matters, and I've provided you 2907.31 of our Ohio Revised Code, and it conflicts. So now you have a law that's in place, that's been put in place by the Ohio General Assembly, that was signed by the governor at one point in time because it was deemed appropriate. And then you have, in this, the other case now with the Library Association and Info Ohio deciding we're going to put anything that we choose out there. I would say that there is nothing in 2907.31. I will refer you to the second page of what I provided members of the board. And under C1, it basically discusses here those exceptions potentially to this specific code, okay? And you look at this, and it basically says it is an affirmative defense to a charge under the section involving material or performance that is obscene or harmful to juveniles, that the material or performance was furnished or presented for a, and keyword, bona fide, and that bona fide, it goes into medical, scientific, etc. So I would basically raise the question once again, if the head of Info Ohio was sitting here right now, my question would be, what bona fide reason do you have putting sites such as Pornhub out there where children can access it? What bona fide reason in any of the material that I've presented to you? And once again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but thank you very much for the question.
Ms. Johnson, and then Dr. Collins, and then Ms. Spessler, in that order.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for being here today. I was looking on the website, and it says here that Info Ohio's resources provide educators and students with premium vetted content such as ebooks, videos, lesson plans, and so forth. So it says their content is vetted. I was interested in Board Member Shea's question in how do you find this stuff? So what's the, how do you, have you seen this material? I mean, you actually searched and found it on the website?
Yes.
How did you do that?
Board President McGuire and Board Member Johnson. Not only did I, but I had roughly 5 to 6 other people that did the same. In each one of those packets that I provided you, when you do decide to go through that envelope, there are instructions for you to follow to gain access to the same information I have provided you.
Okay.
So it's there. It is there. And it's not difficult to obtain that information. And this is the thing that concerns me. I mean, children are exposed, their innocence is being robbed today on a continuous basis with various different levels, and we should not have a situation where we have a tax-paying funded organization such as Info Ohio involved in the pornographic distribution to children. As far as I'm concerned, and this is the thing that is really, that just, I guess you would say, that causes me to, sometimes I have to have a fire extinguisher to put my hair out, because it just drives me nuts whenever we have an attorney general that I've attempted to work with in the past on various issues in the state of Ohio, whether it was a roughly 4 years ago, a 9.5-year-old boy dressed as a girl dancing in a bar for tips, or looking at other issues that I brought to his attention, but the law of the state of Ohio is here. This is the law that I just provided you. And this should be something that very easily the Attorney General's office would follow upon and pursue relative to this matter. And if nothing more than just a cease and desist letter coming from his office would be appropriate. But thank you for the question. Thank you.
Dr. Collins.
Member Johnson kind of captured part of my question, which was how does this information come to you? Because those who can't see the materials, there are some very specific search terms being searched. You know, Pornhub, erotic photography, photography of women, probably not sex toys. Those are very specific terms. So I did want to know who's running the searches and how that information came to you. But then my second question to that is, have you been in touch with InfoOhio for a mechanism to report? I mean, this is curated resources, and the internet, you can dig into many holes and end up way far away from where you started. So have you been in touch with InfoOhio for a reporting mechanism so that when these items are found, they can do their due diligence to block, remove, do something on their side?
President McGuire, once again, it's a good question. I have not been in contact with anyone from InfoOhio. When I ran into the roadblocks that I did with the Hudson School Board, this is something that, once again, in my opinion, and in due respect, this board carries a greater amount of weight than I or my organization would have in working with InfoOhio. This is something that I believe is, once again, criminal. Is something that I believe that should be pursued by this board. That's why I'm here today, because I know that this board, with the simple passage of a resolution, the simple requirement of the Attorney General's office to review this matter, some of the things that you're suggesting, I think would be appropriate to put in place. Parents need to know that if your child goes to InfoOhio, and for the men here, we were all teenage boys at one time. A 10, 11-year-old boy, his curiosity is going to be out there. We should not have a taxpayer-funded Ohio entity, and InfoOhio, involved with these things. And I agree with your comment. You can go down a lot of rabbit holes relative to the internet and gain the same information, but we should not have InfoOhio, the state affiliate for our state library system, working with the schools to provide that access to these children.
Ms. Spessler.
Well, I peeked, and I was shocked.
Oh, yes.
At what age would a child be able to see something like that?
President McGuire and Board Member Fessler, I would say once again it would be based upon the expertise of a child. It could be as someone in the second grade, could be someone in the third grade. It very well could be someone that was first grade. It's just going to be based upon the level of expertise of the child. And I would say this, that if we were to discuss, if we had somebody here from the state library system and InfoOhio, they do give children library cards. I don't think it's appropriate to think that we need to be concerned for the parents' sake, also for the child, that we have some type of warning on a library card. Warning, using this card could expose your child to pornographic material. That in my opinion, President McGuire, is just, it's foolish to think that we would need to do that. What we need to have this InfoOhio. It's one of two things. Let me just add this, if I may, very quickly. One of two things. Either InfoOhio is ignorant to the material that's on their site, or they know that it's on their site, and they have no concern with it being there. And both are troubling. Both are extremely troubling in my mind. But thank you for the question.
And follow up?
Yes, Ms. Bessler?
Well, it's a public library, so we do have public records options going here. Have you done anything about trying to follow the money? And my other thought was you gave us a provision here of the Ohio Revised Code. Now that you brought this up, it triggers in my mind that there's something in the blended learning provision, either of the administrative code, yes, probably administrative code, that has a window of opportunity to expose children. From my understanding, we'll probably could talk about that privately. But have you done anything about following the money?
You know, these are individual, Info Ohio provides databases, and if you take a look at their, I guess you would say their banner page as you log into infoohio.org, take a look at the, I'm sorry, President McGuire, I should address you before answering. I need to learn the protocol, my apology. But you will find that they have a number of databases where other entities are providing material. And I do know this, that Info Ohio has a board that's supposedly a review board to look at this data. So once again, how much they're looking at, and it goes back to my original statement a few minutes ago, either they're aware of it or they're not. Either it's ignorance on their part or they have full knowledge that it's there. And as far as the money is concerned, maybe, looking at two former members of the General Assembly, maybe you do know what the current budget is for our libraries and taxpayer dollars that are funding our libraries in the state of Ohio. I know a couple of years ago that was roughly $200 million per year. And that's where some of this money is coming from.
We'll take one more question. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, President McGuire. Thank you, Mr. Stover, for being here. Quickly, I went to ODE's website and typed in Info Ohio and got right to them. And I have not looked at the packet yet, but it's very easy to get there from ODE's website. But my question is, when you did your searches, or your 5 or 6 other companions did their searches, were you using a school-issued computer on a school network that would have filters for these kind of things, or were you doing them outside of that?
You will, I'm sorry, President McGuire, board member, I would say this, that you can get in a number of different ways. You can get in by, once again, a portal of a school district would allow you to go right in. You can get in as a private citizen. And then you'll notice on their web page for Info Ohio, top right-hand corner, what you'll find is that they have various age groups, but there's no security for those age groups. And I think there's 4 different age groups. So someone that was 6 or 7 years old could select the 16 through 18. If in fact they have some type of filter that prohibits that, a younger age group from reaching that material, I don't know. But there is nothing that prohibits a 5, 6, 7-year-old from gaining access to the material that would be provided for a 16 to 18-year-old.
Follow up, Mr. Miller?
Okay, and I understand that, but my question I'm trying to get to, do we have a problem with the filters that school districts use within their buildings for internet access and or school-issued computers? So I was wondering if you used the school-issued computer to do these searches, or did it on a school's internet within a school building. I'm trying to get it. Do we have a problem within the school buildings or school issued as well? That would be very alarming to me. I understand, outside of that, I just got to it sitting here. I understand that.
Yes. President McGuire, the PCs that we used were private PCs. They were not school district PCs that we're utilizing. But I would say that it would be a hard-pressed thought in my mind to think that the school districts are providing any type of security for the children of that district. If there's any security that would be in place, it would be with the Info Ohio, and I did not see any security whatsoever.
Thank you, sir. I've asked Superintendent Sittings to talk about the partnership, but we need to know as a board that internationally and nationally, policymakers, parents, professionals in the education field, thought leaders, there is a concern about student access to information and when I say information that is audio or visual that could impact sexualization. There's a growing concern internationally and nationally. And I'd like Stephanie to address our partnership with, is it Info Ohio?
Thank you, President McGuire, and thank you, Mr. Stover, for being here. I just wanted to address the Info Ohio has a partnership with the department as well as receives $2.5 million in state funding for electronic resources to support the teaching of state academic content standards. So as a result of your testimony, we did reach out to Info Ohio to ask them about the concerns around access to pornography. They have indicated to me there is not a way to access pornography on their site. I also was unable to find using the search terms you had. So to follow up on Dr. Collins' point, we would strongly encourage you to reach out directly to Info Ohio. We will share this packet that you have provided. It is very concerning to us that any material like this would be available, and would never want something like that to be the case. So I just want to indicate that they use educators to vet materials. That is how they go through reviewing materials that are posted and available. So they are curated resources, and they are designed to be developmentally appropriate for different children's age groups. So again, we will absolutely immediately make them aware of these concerns, and then certainly happy to follow up with to Mr. Shea's comment about any just having them be available to answer questions about their materials and access to resources. But they have been a very important partnership to us, as well as librarians and school educators statewide. Thank you.
Could you restate how the resources are targeted in the contract? I mean, you said $2.5 million available for what specific
Yes.
purposes?
Thank you. So in the budget, so there is an appropriation for $2.5 million for each fiscal year for Info Ohio to support the provision of electronic resources with priority given to resources that support the teaching of state academic content standards in all public schools.
Thank you. Thank you.
President McGuire, if I could ask one question, who would you suggest that I contact? Do you have a contact name, and what is the title and position of this person?
President McGuire, Mr. Stover, Erica Clay is the, I'm going to make sure I have her title right. Scott, is it Executive Director? Executive Director. And we'd be happy to follow up with contact information for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm having Mercy. One more question, Mr. Hagan.
I don't need mercy, so I'll hold my question and ask the superintendent privately.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, Mr. Stover, for your presence. Yeah. Yes.
Would you give consideration to creating a committee to look into this?
As a matter of fact, you're reading my mind. It'll be part of our leadership discussion, and we'll see where we go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stover. Okay, next we have Patrick Glora. Oh, I did pretty good. Patrick DeGlora.